Kinsley.
And I'm Ashleigh, reporting for Kids First. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Julia Howe, youth and entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and co-host of Express Yourself Teen Radio from San Francisco, California.
Howe is a volunteer with Be the Star You Are charity, empowering women, families, and youth. She's also the recipient of the President's Volunteer Service Award. Thank you, Julia, for joining us on the show.
I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you guys so much for interviewing me.
Of course. So, Be the Star You Are is an all volunteer, not for profit 501c3 arts and culture corporation whose mission is to empower women, families, and youth through improved literacy, tools for living, and positive message media. How did you become a volunteer with this organization?
Yeah, it was actually kind of random. I was just like looking on the internet. I think this was the summer right before my freshman year of high school, and I was really looking to get involved in like organizations that were changing women's literacy because that was something I was very passionate about because I also love writing poetry. And I just saw like an advert online that was like, we're looking for some book reviewers. And so basically I got into contact with Cynthia, and it started by just like writing some reviews of some of my favorite like science fiction books. And then she invited me to one of the events in person. I think it was the Pear and Wine Festival. Basically, Be the Star You Are does all sorts of like little pop-ups where basically they'll work with kids in like the local community. We'll read them books that Cynthia's written. We'll like plant like metaphorical seeds of literacy with them, which is actually just like planting these little like seeds in these kind of like egg cartons, which is like also sustainable. So I showed up there and I met the other volunteers, and I was really struck by how incredibly kind and open and welcoming this community was. And ever since that day, I was completely sold. Cynthia invited me to like come on air and try being on the radio. And of course, I was a little nervous at first. I was like, the radio, do those still even exist? But I remember my first kind of radio session. It was on the 4th of July, and it was with my now co-host Kirthi. And we had such a great time kind of like laughing over our love of like Trader Joe's and like debate and stuff like that. And so that's really when I became part of the Be the Star You Are community.
That's awesome. And now you are where you are today.
And also, Julia, because you are so ambitious, especially being a young woman, what really motivates you to continue to do these amazing things?
I feel like my number one kind of thing I've always set for myself is only doing things I feel truly passionate about. Because in the past, like my parents, obviously, they're super invested in my life, but they put a lot of pressure for me to like try all these different activities. I remember, I think I was like 10 years old, and they really wanted me to do ballet. I like did it a little bit, a couple classes per week, but they wanted me to go all in on that. But honestly, I like kind of reflected on my ballet classes, and I thought to myself, was I really happy? Was this something I could actually see myself doing? And I decided I wanted to kind of focus my attention elsewhere. And that's basically my motivation. I do what I love, and it's selfish, but it's also the way you kind of keep these things going as kind of a lifelong hobby.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great message that passion fuels ambition. That's cool.
Yeah, literacy is a huge focus of Be the Star You Are program. Why do you think being able to read is so important for everyone?
So when I first learned to read, it was the first time I got to see a world outside of just my like San Francisco, California bubble. And so I think it's really important for everyone to be able to learn how to read so they can be brought to places they've never been before.
I totally agree with that.
Going back and imagining yourself, let's say that someone builds a time machine and you can visit that 5-year-old self, that 5-year-old Julia for just 10 minutes. What advice would you give her and yourself?
This is a really fun question. I think my answer has definitely changed a lot. If it was my 5-year-old self, I think I would tell her to understand, this is going to sound a little strange, but I'll explain. Like understand her niche, because what I care about is specific. I care about women's literacy. I care about like female athlete empowerment. And so much over like my kind of journey, so many people have told me that you need to like diversify, you need to be more accommodating, you need to kind of make your message more universally acceptable. So what I tell that 5-year-old girl is that it's okay that people are going to disagree with you.
So, traveling back, Express Yourself Teen Radio is a show for, by, and about teens. What has been your favorite topic you have discussed on the show?
Oh, this is so hard because I basically love every single radio episode we do. One I really enjoyed is, well, what I really love about Express Yourself is our topics are so random in such an incredibly fun way. It's everything from like the psychology of dogs, and the next week we're going to like the election and politics. I think it really shows that how every topic does have value. I think my favorite episode that I did was kind of on the value of dogs and why it's important for us to have pets because I have two guinea pigs. I don't really appreciate them that much a lot of the time. They're not very affectionate. They mostly just like eat food and they're pretty boring. But after kind of discussing how pets teach us how to be responsible and how to care for another living being, I really kind of went back to my guinea pigs with this whole new perspective. And so my favorite episodes tend to be the ones where afterwards I'm actually remembering like the quotes from my co-hosts and from our guests, and I'm bringing that into my own life.
And Julia, also, you just have this great presence. So you return to the mic as a TEDx speaker and a podcaster. Where does your public speaking confidence come from?
This is a really good question. I feel like when I was a kid, I'd watch those like national speech and debate kind of like contest videos online, and I would be like, these kids are so incredibly put together. I'm never going to be like that. And I think a really big message that I want to get across is that though like debate and speech is so important and great, you don't really need those kind of classes to be a good speaker. I think what's really important is getting across your emotion. And that's why I like speech so much as an art form. In like things like singing, it's really important to like stay on pitch and be at the right tone all the time. Speaking, you can be so authentic. It's okay to not be perfect and have your voice crack and to show emotion. And that was really something I had to learn with my TEDx talk because just behind the scenes, even though all those people on TEDx seem like they have it so put together, it is so nerve-wracking to give a long speech that's completely like just completely memorized. And I remember with my friends, a couple of us were doing the TEDx speech, and we were all just so panicked that we would get that moment where we'd go up into the lights and then we'd freeze and there'd be nothing there. And while giving my speech, I did have one of those moments. But because I remembered that it's okay to like not be perfect when you speak, it actually makes you human. I just kind of improved a little and talked a little bit like about my childhood, and my TED Talk was on kind of linguistics and how music can be kind of used to learn language. And so I just went back and talked a little bit about my middle school experience at a Chinese immersion school. And that's the biggest lesson, I think, from my own experience with speech.
And I've watched your TEDx talk. It was absolutely incredible, Julia. Such a great job.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you for watching all of it.
Yeah, you have amazing confidence. And I love your podcast titled Life Lessons with Julia. How have your life lessons changed throughout the years?
I actually got to go on Cynthia's radio show, which is fantastic, and kind of talk a little bit about my own experience. I loved filming that kind of episode with her because it was so authentic. It was just completely my unfiltered thoughts. I talked about like the little mnemonics I would use to like memorize my like math homework and my chemistry equations. I talked about like situationships and like high school dating. I think some of my bigger life lessons with that is that part of the beauty of kind of being a teenager is being really messy and strange and not having it together and not always being the wisest person. And that's an unavoidable part of growing up.
That's wonderful.
And Julia, wrapping up this amazing interview, what's advice that you would like to pass on to others your age?
Your youth makes you unique. You can bring like a new perspective on so many problems, and it's often a very like undervalued or unheard perspective. And so I think it's important to learn not only to accept that you are young, but to leverage that and say, I know my community the best, or I understand teen athletes the best, or I just understand teenagers in general because I am one. And I think that has such a power to it.
That's amazing advice. Your youth makes you unique needs to be a Pinterest quote. Well, thank you so much for talking with us, Julia.
Totally. I had a fantastic time. It was really fun interviewing you the other week.
Absolutely. So listen to Julia on Express Yourself Radio every Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. I'm Ashleigh.
And I'm Kinsley, reporting for Kids First. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel to stay informed about upcoming films. Thank you. Bye.